Hey!
Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to Show X Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado.
Hey, wait a second. I'm on the show too, and I don't get any billing at all? Well, I know how to solve this.
Underappreciated.
So that dude, Fremad Marsh. You're listening to Show X with our favorite Scotsman Ken, our child of the corn Wayne, currently living in Colorado, and Todd, who now has an army of angry Norwegians at his back. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody.
The way that you say currently living in Colorado there, Todd, always makes me think that it's like foreshadowing and that you know something about Wayne moving. But not even he knows yet.
Things could happen. Things could change.
There's all kinds of things that can happen. That's a quadruple inside reference. So in engineering circles, of which Wayne and I were both in the same industry working for the same company, every time they talk about backup facilities, somebody will sarcastically mention the smoking hole scenario. Whereas your primary command center or data processing center or whatever has just been turned into a crater by some event. And so that's why you need a backup. Well, Wayne works at a site that could potentially be turned into a smoking hole. So he's currently living in Colorado, but you never know.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that could occur.
Tomorrow, Colorado could be turned into a smoking hole. Haven't you watched 2012? Oh, wait, that was Wyoming. Never mind.
See, that, or I could, suddenly decide I'm done with all of this and maybe we'll nuclear option move to some place where the amount of money I have saved up in all of my time can keep me in a hovel that at least provides good internet and consistent power. And I can live out the rest of my time not donating 40 hours a week to a organization, but instead in reinvesting that 40 hours a week into my regular time and play video games until such time as I can no longer think.
You're listening to Show X with Ken, live from student accommodation, Michigan, and Wade, currently living in Thailand.
I have run the numbers, everyone. I could stop working ever again tomorrow.
Yes.
If I decide that is a lifestyle I want to maintain, I could never work again starting tomorrow and live the rest of my time in Thailand.
That's a hell of a temptation, dude.
Right?
Be hard.
Right? Oh, trust me. There's the questions of lifestyle and stuff, but the more I think about it, all I need, as I already told myself, is an investment every 2 years in upgraded computer hardware, consistent internet, and food, shelter, power, done. And I could pretty much exist forever. And that could just be my life. I already realized I could probably shed most of my stuff here, reduce it to what I have hardware-wise, maybe my server in some format, a 3D printer or two. I'm already stuck because it's all going to be geek stuff. And then, take the OLED I have, put it on one wall, and, then I could just go somewhere and maybe I'd probably need a dehumidifier or something, but beyond that, I'm probably good. Hey, I live in the desert, darn it. I'm used to this. But anyhow,
dude, if you lived somewhere that was genuinely cheaper, so obviously we've moved from the UK to here, and we're looking at elsewhere for the next few years. We're thinking maybe Mexico next. And one of the things we look at is, not only income, that's obviously important, but also price of living, right? Like if we move to New Zealand, which is one of the places we'd love to go live, the prices there are insane. It is so expensive to live there. It is insane. Like just grocery shopping and, renting an apartment would be all of our money. All of it. That's it.
Yep.
is going to use his factor. I can't say that. Ken has students. I can't say that.
I don't have students.
Hypothetically, Ken could take a job in Mexico and use his factorial algorithm to optimize production of a certain type, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I'm going to take this jumper off very quickly. That's the university.
Hey, that could be done.
Hey, I didn't say that.
That could be done here in southern Colorado, but
that's also true.
That's fair enough.
I watched Breaking Bad as well. It's true.
That's a lucrative business till you get on the wrong side of the guys with the AK-47.
Hey, you do it remotely, right? The new day and age.
Well, yeah, but he said he wanted to live in Mexico, so he's even got the.
You'll get
the relo. You'll get a nice house. You'll get a substantial stipend.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Essentially, though, you could do that job from anywhere.
Up until the point that you turn state's evidence, and then the guys with the butter flaying apparatus.
Oh my God.
In this day and age, you just have a nice proxy and someone in between to work as the go-between, several P.O. boxes and such. I mean, again, you just look at how remote work has been evolved in today's society, and you extend it, right? I am sure there are lots of people taking advantage of the opportunity to not have to go into the office, as you were, and risk the modern version of the No, you're right, because none of those people would trust them when they can't turn screws in. But speaking of which, such great references to actually several movies and things that we could talk about today. Today on Show X, we are versus your favorite movies, everybody. We are going to be talking about, from our perspective, what it is we love in cinema and some of our favorite titles, and hopefully discuss a little bit about why. What is it that makes something one of our favorites? Because I know for me, this has been a bit of a challenge. I spent some time this morning, especially making a short list of the first things that came to mind and starting to dig into a little bit of the whys around it. And I actually had, as I was playing some Warzone this morning, trying to finish up my Battle Pass as they're having a triple-double XP weekend. But I talked to some of the guys on with me about favorite movies, and some of them were kind of just popping some up and throwing them out there. I was like, yeah, that's a good movie, but not a favorite. Like, it's iconic. I enjoy it. I'll watch it again. But if I'm trying to talk to, like, top tier, and for me, that's a challenge anything. If you try to ask me my favorite anything... and one of them even said it, right? It can be dependent upon your mood, your state of mind, what's happening at that moment in your life. And something like, because for me, so many things I've realized are compared to experience I've had in the past. So based on my mood today, a favorite movie might be the one that got me through a time at that thing, or that I share a moment of thought about. And so I'm going to be really curious to see what we all kind of share in this space. And also for those who are watching us today, this is a great opportunity, one, to comment on what choices and things we talk about. And
I'm going to get absolutely blasted for this list.
Well, and two, to share like what some of your thoughts on some of your favorites, because I'm sure listening to us talk about cinema and movies and such might spark some of your own thoughts and things where you're like, oh man, okay, cool. Now this will be interesting. So the comment in there from Unit Zero is, could we put a list up so we can vote? So I think...
no, I don't need Unit Zero's tacit approval of what my favorite movies are.
Well, so I wouldn't put that. I will say that what we can do is offer up from each of us, like our top three of whatever list we maybe have that we want to put forth for the audience to rate, maybe rank at where they think ours last. Not to say that they don't have better or others, but things like that. That might be an option we can go through, as I love the idea of contributing the votes. And I don't remember if we ever went back and looked at the results of our previous poll.
I just realized that as well. I was just kicking myself for us not having gone back and checked the final votes on the top video game stuff of all time.
Yeah, we'll check that as we go, maybe through the break or something. But that's something that'll be interesting to talk about. So, to kick things off, about us talking about some cinema today. Oh man, I don't even know how to jump in, but I will offer up one of my movies that I consider a favorite. And as I thought about one of the reason this one comes up, it is one that I perhaps saw in the theater the most of almost any film I ever watched. Now, part of this may be because of the time frame it came out. This was a high school movie for me, like a senior year movie for me, or somewhere around that time frame. And it's often that things that are kind of, I've understood, that you experience towards those end of formative years often showcase and rate very high. So, for me, the first one I'll bring up is the original Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
And my reasons
that's a classic.
My reasons for it, and there's a lot that'll come up as classics for a lot of people, but for me, a favorite and a reason of, like I said, I think I saw that movie in the theater 6 times within a 2-week period. And I'm always happy to watch it again. That's another thing that kind of made it for the list. If it comes on, I will easily sit down and watch it. And it almost always gives me the same sense of wonder and, like, I don't know, energy that I got from the first time. Because that was one that, for me, going into the theater, I did it like so many other people. It was blind at the time of, it's a dinosaur movie. And, of course, when the original previews and trailers hit, right, all it was is, it's a dinosaur movie. And they look really cool. So going in, I had no expectations and understanding of what it would become. And that movie,
nobody expected that level of impressive music as well. That's one thing I really want to mention with that film is, holy crap, that film score was just amazing.
The plot, the cinematography, the score, almost every aspect of that movie gave me joy, let alone the sheer epicness of the visual effects and the mix between digital and practical effects in a movie that I argue still hold up today. Like 20 plus years later, right?
Yep.
And the epic for me, like, it had the build, it had, I mean, you could argue the acting was okay, right? I don't think anyone acted terribly in it, and they acted well. No one did a, go get nominated for something award for the acting. But as a package, it was brilliant to me. And the iconic scene for me, the first one where things have gone to pot and it's bad, and you're already a little like, what's happening? And the gal, forgetting character names, right? The main gal goes to find out what happened to the guy that went to turn the power back on.
Can we call her Vice Admiral Holdo?
Oh, is it?
It's Laura Dern.
Oh, okay. I did not realize that.
Yep.
That's how how separated those movies are for me. But at the end of it, right, when she goes, the nerves, and it's got scared, and then the arm comes down and hits her side, and she's like, oh, thank goodness, and then moves, and the arm comes with her, and it's like the first real visualization of blood, gore, violence, and you're like, oh, God. And then right after that, the timing, so good, of the raptor coming through the pipes partially, the jump scare that followed was epic. So for me, all that built up and what it turned into because of how it impacted me at that age, when we went back, because it was basically every time another friend group of mine was like, oh, I heard about this Jurassic Park. And I'd be like, oh, did you want to go see that? Because I will go back. And we did. And then after like the third time, when we went the 4th, 5th, and 6th time, I went with friends who had already seen it again to see it again.
Okay.
But we then found ourselves having a different and more entertaining experience in that at the same time, because this was within those first 2 weeks of coming out and nobody knowing what the movie was really about, parents seemed to think that dinosaurs meant it was a kid's movie. And in my experience, we showed up and there were often groups of young kids in like middle school or younger with an adult in a theater, and we purposely, I remember one specific time, group of like 4 of us sat in the row right behind a group of probably 8, where there's like 6 or 7 children, younger kids or whatever, and an adult or 2. And we waited for that first jump scare. And all of us reached over the chairs and grabbed the shoulder of the child in front of us.
Oh.
And they leapt and screamed. And we feel like we really gave them much more of that kind of 4D experience that you hear about in movies, where it was more interactive that way.
Very modern effects. Yeah.
Those kids so dirty.
It was wonderful. We were so happy with ourselves. So we did that like the next 2 times we saw it after that as well. We tried to find someone we could help them and appreciate the real impact of the movie.
Oh, man.
So for me, That's the start of a movie that really just, again, you can hopefully you can hear the joy that I bring around the whole experience of Jurassic Park.
I have to say, Wayne, with the benefit of hindsight of our industry, I totally see the IT guy being the low bid for that contract.
Oh God,
like,
Ned or whatever his name is.
Low bid, right there. Newman,
thank you.
Newman's the IT guy, and it's just like I don't know who's gonna debug 2 million lines of code. I just know if you can find somebody else to do it. It's just like nope, you massively oversold what you can do, and now you're caught. I've been in the
every contractor in our industry.
Yes, I've been in the room where that's happened.
I don't think it's fair to say just in your industry. I think it's every contractor in IT, is in my experience anyway.
I am only speaking to my experience, right? And I have watched large contracts get bid where you say, and I, as a consumer to the output of other people bidding contracts, I have made the comments of like, gosh, if only entities who were in charge of all this would hold to task the people who had bid this way and say, you told us you could. And so if you can't, there's consequences. But unfortunately, that's not how it happens in our industry. So anyhow. But yeah, so what are your guys' general quick thoughts about Jurassic Park if it's not one of the ones that was on your list? If it is, say so. But if not, it's like, oh. But in general, like, can you see or at least understand where I put it, I elevate it?
Sure.
Oh, totally. For sure. That's a very respectable choice. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One that flew by me, actually. I didn't really consider that one. That's a good one.
Oh, dude, this is tough.
It would not rank so high on my list, but I was never how do I say this in a respectful way? Like, dinosaurs are cool and all, and the movie was good. Wow, nice cup. Awesome.
Sorry.
That's
finally
really
got
cool.
them in.
Let me ask you this, Trebek. Does it work?
Oh boy. Does
I'll order a dozen. But dinosaurs were just they're cool and all, but like compared to other things, I just it did not capture me in the same way, and for whatever reason, I don't know that I ever saw it in the theater originally.
Gotcha.
All right, I'm gonna just estimate. I'm going to estimate right now that Todd's just about to say that his favorite film of all time is Nude Nuns with Big Guns.
It's up there.
Classics.
It's up there. Dead or alive.
The key about that one that you're not giving enough credit, Ken, pacing. It's all about the delivery and the pacing. Anyhow, as I've now projected one of mine, I would like each of you to share.
No, you served this up, Wayne. The third act is a killer.
I mean, it does end on a note that, what can you say? Everyone gets a piece, or, Okay, I need to stop. Ken, what is one of the movies from your list? Continue, because we have many we can get into.
This was made really easy for me because we just watched it again. So I've seen this film 3 times, twice in its standard original form, once in the cinema, once at home back in Scotland, and once here now on Netflix in the new extended edition where it's episodized, I guess is how you can phrase it.
An episodic version?
Yeah, so Hateful Eight. Fantastic film. They made an extended version, but instead of it just being one big 4-hour chunk, it's in 4 separate 1-hour episodes, and it's then reintroduced.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it was split by the acts within the film. So it's got Samuel L. Jackson in it, who is just a phenomenal actor, as everybody knows. But he does so well in this film as well. You have so much respect for him. They deal with racism in such a good way as well for that era. It's as my wife put it, is a true one of the best examples of a character study. How on earth can you have a film that of the 4 hours, I'd say 3 hours, 45 minutes of it is based within one room. Room.
I was gonna say I was trying to remember if I've seen this one, but this is one basically all the characters get snowed into the one room.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I have seen it then because that was my concern. I was like, did I see it?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's one of Tarantino's best.
That's right.
It's up there. I mean, if I had to rank Tarantino movies, like Kill Bill and Jackie Brown are probably 1 and 1A, but The Hateful Eight's right up there.
No, that one. You're right. That one had some stuff.
Of Kill Bill, weirdly, but I really love Pulp Fiction, and I'm probably gonna. To be honest, I could easily fill my favorite lists probably just with Tarantino films and be pretty comfortable with that.
He's so good. He's so good.
It's the music, but most importantly, it's the way that he directs the actors into their acting. You know, like he really brings out the best in actors. I imagine they must have to retake their takes 100 times with slightly different facial expressions, and the dialogue I feel is just so deep that every time something is uttered, it has like 3 different meanings. You know, it's such a well-considered script. You look like you're in disagreement, Wayne.
No, I was thinking more because I'm looking at the list coming through like chat as well. In addition, so Hateful Eight, I enjoyed, thought was awesome, but for whatever reason, I didn't get a single Tarantino movie that made my list. And I'm thinking through them, like they hit that list thing again of shock, awe, something new and different that hits on so many levels. But then I just stick back and I'm like, and I enjoy. I think I've enjoyed most of what I've seen of Tarantino. Maybe 1 or 2 that I'm like,
Inglourious Bastards, Reservoir Dogs.
Right. Yep.
Pulp Fiction, obviously. Yep. Jackie Brown. They're all fantastic. I would, and one of the conditions to be on my list was, would I stop what I'm doing to watch them?
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't know that there's a Tarantino film that I wouldn't stop what I'm watching.
Oh, gotcha.
To watch.
Yeah, no, I would watch the heck out of some Tarantino.
Watch. Yeah.
No, that's great. No, it's just for whatever reason when I think back to the movies, none of them hit. But at the same time, I think in general Tarantino, I'm like, all are pretty damn high bar for me. So that's actually really cool. And it's funny too because as Eunice saying, he's not a Tarantino fan, right? I know as an actual movie maker, Tarantino is polarizing. That a lot of people either love or just do not like him, right? For what he's done.
Well, because he'll use words that you're not supposed to use. Like that was one of the big things about both Hateful Eight and Django.
Yeah.
Was that they dropped
also a great film, by the way.
Also a great film. But they dropped the N-bomb in those films like all over the place.
Yeah, he actually uses the things in context.
In a graceful, respectful way, though. They're showing that what horrible racist people are like, and that's the only time you can use that word.
Here's the moral of that story. Tarantino did exactly what everybody should do, and it's like it's my artistic vision. It's a period piece set in the whatever time period it's set, where people talked like that, and it was not only acceptable but expected.
Yeah.
In a way, right? So, like, I'm not going to apologize for me writing dialogue that makes sense for the period of time that the films are set just because it offends your sensibilities, which is what everybody in the creative space should do anytime any of these arguments come up. Yep. It's just like, you know what, this is my creative vision, and I think it's appropriate, and you can disagree, and that's fine, but I'm not apologizing for it, and I'm not going to change it.
Well, it's because it's not channeling their inner racism. It's channeling the racism of an era past. And you know, I don't really see any of these characters being portrayed as good people. You know, generally speaking, when the people are being super racist, they usually get shot in the face. You know, in a pretty bad way.
Right.
You know, it's not exactly like saying like we're I don't know, idolizing these people in any which way, and I think it's just, I think it's people who just generally have a dislike, have the delicate sensibilities, which is completely understandable, by the way, of hearing the N word or any similar word that upsets them and just being like, that's enough for me, and that's absolutely fine if that's your level of where you're no longer feeling entertained and you're now no longer enjoying it, you feel uncomfortable. Sure. That's absolutely fine, but that doesn't mean everybody else can't enjoy it, right? That's not what that means.
Yeah, no, you're right.
100%.
No, and I like that you brought Quentin into the conversation because, like I said, he provided, and when he's another one that when he came out on the scene, it was at a time frame that for me was in that iconic high school kind of time frame as well. Because I was the classic thing where I think I saw Pulp Fiction first and then went back and saw Reservoir Dogs and then continued through. And I was also the one who would get confused when a movie came out that included most of the same people and Tarantino in it, but wasn't Tarantino because it was like a Rodriguez movie or something.
Yeah, that's From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, From Dusk Till Dawn's the first one that did that to me. Where well, it's From Dusk Till Dawn, and then knowing it wasn't, but appreciating. Oh man, this one should be on my list, but isn't. Desperado. Equally, where I was like, man, these movies, right, and great moments and stuff. So for me, there's a feel of Tarantino that I quite appreciate, and I do love his movies. But my list, I tried to keep it really short. So I like that, Ken. I'll need to go back and watch Hateful Eight again because I enjoyed it.
So good. Watch on Netflix.
I didn't
watch
really
the extended edition. Oh.
Okay, I need to watch again. Todd, over to you for a first of your list, kind of just where
we only have an hour and a half left, so I don't know if we've got enough time. But it's one of two of a double feature that I saw when I was 5 or 6.
Okay.
The first of the first 2 big people movies that I ever saw in the movie theater with my parents. The Empire Strikes Back.
Gotcha.
Of course, Star Wars was bound to come up today. It was bound to.
It's, to my mind, the best film ever made.
Nice.
Wow.
It has, and this is what I'm about to commit an act of heresy. So apologies to all the Star Wars fans. I get bored in the middle half hour, right? So the
of Empire,
the Luke, of Empire.
Okay,
the Luke training with Yoda, it lags to me. Like it's the part of the Star Wars universe that I like the least, right? So we get this awesome battle on the ground. Imperial Walkers. I have an Imperial Walker. It's probably in Las Vegas at this point. But there's a box of my toys somewhere. I have an Imperial Walker someplace, right? We get this great ground battle. The Empire beats the hell out of the Rebels, but the Rebels get away. And Han Solo, like the Millennium Falcon's the last ship out, and they're being chased down. And here's this crappy little freighter that's being chased down by capital ships. So what are you going to do? Well, we're going to go hide in the asteroid field because it's the only way we're getting away. And meanwhile, Darth Vader is awesome, doing Darth Vader things like choking out his own officers.
That was a great scene. That's a very good scene.
Admiral Ozzel came out of Lightspeed too close to the system. He did. And for that, you die.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. Piet survived both trying to chase down the Millennium Falcon and failing, and survived the Battle of or he didn't survive the Battle of Endor, but he made it to the Battle of Endor. Right? He dies because he's on the Executor when the Executor crashes into the second Death Star. It spears the second Death Star. That visual. But anyway.
I could have said pegs, but
the training is absolutely necessary part of the story, and yet it's the least awesome thing for me is like 2.5 hours of awesome, right? And we get the lightsaber fight at the end, and like Vader is still awesome and doing awesome Vader things, all too easy, and right? And it's just like, oh my god. How big of a badass do you have to be to just be like, yep, I've done whipped your ass. Doink. I mean, it doesn't work out that way, but still, like, oh man. And yeah, like, so we saw what happens when you don't put that training in, when you don't put that character development in, right? Inside the Star Wars universe, where we have the hero character, and the hero character could just do everything and didn't have to earn any of it in the same way that Luke Skywalker, like, we get 30 to 40, maybe 45 minutes of the film of him earning the right to get his ass kicked by Vader in Cloud City, and it's just
it's great to hear you talk about it, Todd, because for me, I love the Star Wars universe and the books, the stories, so much around it, and often forget and don't identify myself enough about how much of a Star Wars nerd I can be until someone starts talking about it, and then we have a 6-hour show that wasn't long enough. And it's like, but then I come back, and because for me, of the Star Wars series, right, the one that has the most nostalgia for me is New Hope. And because I always hear people talk about Empire and how it's epic and so many people's favorites. And for me, it's like, I like it. But the difference is for me is like whenever I put on the movies, I can put on New Hope. And every time I'm just going to sit down there and it's going to give me that like the introduction to the universe feel. I guess that's my problem is I probably have too much rose tint over my glasses to objectively look at the movie.
Sure.
Because I've always wondered about that level of like as you rank them kind of thing. That how much like I love Empire as well. I love the first 3, right? The originals are great. And it's yes, and thank you, Unit, because even Jedi, when it has the Nub Nub song at the end, which I still miss in any cut that doesn't. So I love that you bring up Star Wars because I knew it had to come up in the list. At least something of the Star Wars universe had to.
Yeah, and I figured I'd get it over with early so we could get to the controversial stuff later.
But no, I love it because I kept struggling.
There are acts of heresy in this list.
You got Indiana Jones 4 in there or something?
if Crystal Skull's on the list, then it's
spoiler alert. It's aliens, everybody.
Controversial.
Well,
that would be controversial. It's not in my list.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick nod out to another one that's on my list that I would be surprised if most people have even seen, but is one that was for me. This is going to be sappy in a way, but iconic. For me, one of the most romantic movies I have on the list, kind of thing, I'll say. And that is, another early 90s one. The Last of the Mohicans.
Wow.
With Daniel Day-Lewis, I think was lead in that one. Because and it's one that when I think you can mention on Jurassic Park first, the score on Last of the Mohicans. It's one of the first, I think, soundtrack that I purchased, like just because I heard it was like, oh my gosh, and it's all orchestral, and it's a movie that has such limited speech in it, but such moving scenes, and so many of the most like, oh my god, that happened scenes have not a single word spoken, and just have like movements or just like facial expressions. And I don't know if you guys have each seen the movie, but there's a scene where a person gets killed at the top of this mountain kind of thing. And because it's also, for me, a period piece about, which war was it? It's the Revolutionary, I think. But, and it's taking place in like northeastern U.S. and Canada, basically, in that region. So you have a lot of French influence, British, U.S., and Native American at the time, various tribes. And because of the difference in languages, there's a lot that happens that they don't talk to each other a whole lot. And it's more just motioning and the impact of like, you can tell what is implied and what's necessary in that moment. And when there's a breakdown of conversation, sometimes people get punished for it, right? And it's like a vital situation. Someone's trying to talk their way through it. And the other side's like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't care. Boom. You get knocked, right? And throughout the whole movie, basically, it's nothing but really a love story. And that just blew me away. And it's another one I watched multiple times. And it's one of those almost things, if I was ever dating a gal and I wanted to have that serious, like, let's see how you react to things movie, that was the one I'd put on. Because it wasn't like it was going to turn into anything special, but for me, it was like, this is a love story, damn it. Look how these people connected and willing to die for things and give themselves fully. And so it's another one I like. The cinematography, acting, everything in it, for me, is an epic movie.
Good choice, Wayne. I quite enjoyed that one. That was a little different.
Yeah.
So, on to you again, Ken. And it's one that I don't need to go in big, but it's one that just makes my list. out there.
I've seen it a long while ago, and I can't say I recall it, so I can't really comment.
I know I've watched it in its entirety, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. So
It's like you said, Todd, one that if it comes on, I will watch it, and I will lose however many hours it is, and I'll just be like, this is wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, if we're gonna go for the obvious ones, Todd, I'm gonna choose my obvious one, and you guys are both gonna roll your eyes and groan, but I'm gonna say it loudly and proudly: Lord of the Rings. And I'm not gonna specify which one because to me they aren't separate films.
I mean,
it's
one book,
one
right?
really long film for me.
it's one story that he had to break up because you'll lose everybody.
Absolutely. So, I thoroughly enjoy these films. The music, I still, there probably hasn't been a day in the past like 3 years where at least one song from Lord of the Rings hasn't played inside of our home. Like we love Lord of the Rings, both me and my wife. As I mentioned before, we had Concerning Hobbits play at our wedding, as you know, Wayne. I also learned that on guitar, that song. We plan to do our 10th wedding anniversary in New Zealand, in Hobbiton. And we plan to do, because they do those, like, you can get married at Hobbiton, but we're not going to go with the whole wedding package. We just want to go see it, right? We don't plan on inviting 50 people over to New Zealand because that's hell on earth trying to do that again. Wait, trying to get in again.
Hey.
I can't say it's particularly romantic.
I will go to
me,
I will
my wife, and Wayne.
No, just like me visiting on Christmas, right? I will come the day later and let you guys enjoy and just be present at the similar time frame that you happen to be in the area because New Zealand's on the right.
Oh, we absolutely want to I think we'll try and make it like a 2-weeker. Like we want to really explore, and I want to go with my camera and see all the beautiful. Anyway, aside from all that, the landscape where they did the cinematography was beautiful. Like all the cinematography is just absolutely gorgeous, right? So many beautiful hills and lakes and valleys and great choice of place to put Tolkien's world visually. So the score was amazing. The visual effects were amazing. The script was awesome. So many iconic lines that are still quoted today. Like how many times do you see a stop sign and make a Gandalf reference, right? Who doesn't?
Yeah.
And so many good games came out of it as well. Video games came out of it. The books themselves also fantastic. Bit of a slog to get through. Don't get me wrong, but they're very good. And like I said before, Tolkien wasn't necessarily the best storyteller, but he was the absolute king, the absolute emperor of world building.
Yep. Now, so the first time I listened to the books, because I listened to them, were the trips back and forth to Wisconsin right after I moved to Denver originally back in the January of 2000 or first of the year 2001. And so the following December, when I went home for Christmas the first year, it was Fellowship of the Ring on the way out and the Two Towers on the way back. And so the drive is about 15 hours.
That'll do
one way. So it was just right, perfect. They fit perfectly in the space of the drive. I'm going to admit something that I would not ordinarily admit. But there's a scene at the end of the Return of the King that will cause me to lose my composure every single time. It does not matter. Yes.
Okay.
It will drive me to tears, and it's actually in the middle of the 800,000 endings of Return of the King. Because seriously, how many more ways can you end a film? Anyway. But it's the scene after Aragorn and Arwen get married, and they're walking through the crowd, and they see the hobbits, right? And the hobbits bow. God, I'm picturing it in my mind's eye, and I'm getting emotional about it. And Aragorn looks at the hobbits and says, "You bow to no man," and the whole crowd bows to the hobbits, and it's just like, oh my God!
They earned it, man. They earned it, and it's something that Oh man, I'm tearing up a little bit just at the thought of it as well. It's a beautiful scene.
I cannot watch that scene and not start crying.
See, it's funny because I am
so
too,
good.
even though it's like, admittedly for the series, I don't remember as many specifics because it's one of those things I've read the books like once all the way through and was like, oh God. And then I think the movies I've only actually watched one time all the way through.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't think I've gone back and like seen the extended kind of thing.
I think I saw
the best
those.
stuff's
Oh no,
in the extended.
twice because I think I did that with the Hobbit marathon as well, in the
Yeah,
theater. But
I think
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw those in the theater between the three of them. Like, I think it was in the theater for one of those three movies something like 15 times. Because it would average out about 5 each. And, yep.
I do have to say, and based on the comments, is like Sir Pencer says in there, loving it, and says much prefer the movie over the books. And Ken, you kind of mentioned it as well with the Slog or whomever, and that's kind of funny because I often say it's rare that I like a movie more than the book. There are a few out there, and Lord of the Rings is probably one. As much as for me the series iconic for world building, this and that, even the movies to me are a bit of a slog. But I give it a heck of a lot of credit for translating the world of the books into visual format. Like, blew me away for the most part of even being able to accomplish that. And I was drawn in, to the fact that they were actually able to translate that world. Interesting. No, that's really good, Ken. And I mean, like you said, obvious, but hey, it is an iconic and massive kind of series. I mean, the Hobbit movies are crap, but the Lord of the Rings was actually pretty solid.
I wasn't a fan. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that's good. And you're right. It's got soundtrack. It's got visuals. And it brings to life an epic. What you call it? That tackling a challenge, right? And that one was pretty damn good. So nice.
It is.
I can accept that as a really solid movie, or series even in that case. Todd, another one from you.
Aliens.
Okay, you're going right in. Aliens.
Aliens.
So what about Aliens makes it so epic for you?
I've had wars when I was a kid growing up. I've had wars in my bedroom that worked that way amongst my toys that essentially follow the plot of Aliens. So like I don't. It's hard to explain. It was the first of the series that I saw. And it was like, oh wow, these are awesome. I was terrified of the aliens for years, to the point where I would not go down into my basement in the wintertime.
Oh really?
In case they're aliens, that makes sense.
Because it was really dark, and we had a furnace. So we had a wood furnace, in fact, in our house. So the basement was always hot or warm, or warmer than sort of the rest of the house, right? Because that's where the wood furnace was, and dark, and where there are warm and dark things, that's where the aliens tend to be, and so I probably, hindsight being 2020, I probably saw it for the first time when I was too young.
Okay, I mean that'll leave an impression,
but yeah, it's. And what's funny is I don't think, having just watched Aliens and then having watched Alien later,
okay,
I did not appreciate what Alien was trying to do, what its plan was or what its goal was as a film, versus what the goal of Aliens was as a film, because they're way different stylistically.
Oh yeah,
right. Alien is like the horror film in space, and Aliens is an action film.
Yes,
much more than a horror film. Also, by the way, director's cut way better than the not director's cut, because there's a lot more flavor that hit the cutting room floor for the theatrical release. So you see Newt's family go out to the derelict spacecraft on LV-426 in the director's cut that starts this whole thing off. Like it's in Newt's father that's like patient zero for the colony getting wiped out by the aliens.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I don't know if I've ever seen it. I don't know if I've ever seen director's cut. Interesting.
At this point, we have to talk about the awesomeness of Bill Paxton. It's game over, man. Game over.
When you talk about iconic scenes and things that you see that carry on from what you kind of you can always reference it. There are a lot of things from Aliens, I think, that come through.
Yes. Yeah, Sigourney Weaver, like the prototype alpha female hero.
The non-apologetic, what do I want to say, like trappings of Hollywood. Female, basically lead.
This is gonna be a terrible, this is gonna be a terrible thing to say, but Sigourney Weaver's got the biggest balls of anybody in that film. She does.
Hey, no, her uterus could take a sledgehammer, and it's crazy because I love it because I've actually seen that brought up before of her as a character type, and even from the throughout basically the Alien series, as much as you do or do not enjoy the overall series, that her characters were always like. They didn't have to be sexy. They didn't have to show skin in the way that you often see presented. Like, it happens, but it's not a showcase of her from a sexual perspective or something like that. That she's competent. That she actually is probably more aware of what's going on in the world than most of the other characters around her. And has probably some of the best decision-making going on. And it's just so not what you often see thrown through a Hollywood lens.
Yeah. No, she goes into survival mode as soon as they get down into the okay, Soda Pop Rocks Jones. I'll get to your comment.
Oh no, see that? I'm reacting to that too because I actually put it in my mind space. Like, dang it!
In just a second.
Dang it! He's gonna challenge me.
Gorman. Ripley realizes that Gorman is incompetent, and this Marine Corps division has no chance as soon as the aliens start coming out of the walls. And she's like, F this. This guy is going to get everybody killed. I'm going to save some lives, and just goes full on survival mode, like take no crap. And
she's awesome. She's well seen as an early feminist figure.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, no, you're right. So, all of that.
Why Aliens over Starship Troopers?
Dang it.
Aliens over Starship Troopers because Starship Troopers is a guilty pleasure film.
Right? Okay, I can agree with that. I love me some Starship Troopers. Like, dang, I love that movie.
I watched that film because oh God, what's her name? Denise Richards, because Denise Richards is really hot and Dina Meyer is topless. I do not watch that film for plot. Michael Ironside is doing Michael Ironside things, which is always great because he's never been bad. But is it as good as Aliens? No, it's not even close.
It's a different kind of roller coaster that you're on. It's a different movie, right? It's sci-fi. Yeah. It's Aliens, but there you don't get the same level of like creep and what's going on as you with the bugs as you do with the xenomorphs, right?
I would do a drinking game for Starship Troopers because I don't really care that much what's going on screen except for a hot naked chicks. Sorry, but that's just what that film
I would say it has that kind of cartoonish visual appeal across the board. I do give Starship Troopers a ton of benefit having read the book and actually think that the movie is another one that may be a better presentation than the book. Is that the pacing in Starship Troopers is really well done. I never get bored in that movie. The people on screen who play the parts they play do a great job for what is being portrayed. So I say it's a quality movie.
Yeah.
I can easily it doesn't have the depth, if you will, of Aliens.
Yeah.
Right.
So to finish, I would if I were to put on Starship Troopers and somebody were to say, "Hey, let's play a drinking game," I would totally do that. I would participate and be perfectly content. If somebody put on Aliens, if we put on the director's cut of Aliens and somebody's like, "Let's do a drinking game," I am much more likely to be, I'd rather just watch the movie.
I can appreciate that.
And that to me was like the big separator between those two. And I'm sorry to be callous. I would like to know more. And I will to Starship Troopers' credit, I think they did a reasonably good job of showing us what fascist Earth would look like.
And so, presented in such a neat light, the way it's subtle because everything's presented not cartoonish, but I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a horrific movie with a nice filter on it that makes everything a little brighter.
Yeah.
Because the scenes even are never really dark. It's almost always like a little brightness. You see what's going on, and yet there's blood and gore everywhere. And yet you see it in a way that it's almost acceptable. The guy gets his face blown off, and you're just like, huh! You know, it's, anyhow. Like I said, Cinepop challenged me because I like the Alien series, and I'm one of the weird ones that probably likes the whole series, even the kind of silly movies. Aliens, still pinnacle of the Alien series as a whole, but because it's a very different kind of feel, what I get from Starship Troopers, I will admit it's another one that when it comes on, I will watch with a little bit of a grin pretty much every time it comes on the screen.
Right. So the difference is, if somebody put on Alien Resurrection, right, or Alien Cubed, and said, let's play a drinking game for either one of those two movies, I would probably do it.
Gotcha.
Right? But Alien and Aliens, and more specifically Aliens, I would start
sit down and
advocating.
watch.
Can we just watch the movie?
You want to sit down and watch that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I got you. All right. Because we're talking sci-fi, and we're about to break here, we've got an epic Ionis break filler to put in there based on last week's Love episode. But my favorite on my list that I just generally state is sci-fi movie, and this might be controversial in the same kind of way, because it ranked above Star Wars and all those, right? The Fifth Element.
Ooh,
that's an interesting one.
The Fifth Element hits on every check mark. Like, it has the audio soundtrack to go with it, including a live, basically operatic performance that I listen to by itself as epic. It has fun characters throughout. The visuals of it are so well defined, and it has, listening to the story of the guy who put it all together, it was such a long built project for him that the world showcases it. It's a fully fleshed out world that they show you things they don't even have to define. They just do it. And it all just works and fits, and you can accept the way the cars fly in the world that's there. You can accept the technology they provide. And if nothing else, it's got some of the best actors in the sense, like, you have almost a cheese effect from having the lead being Bruce Willis, right? Where it's kind of just silly and fun that he's there. But then you have the epicness of having Gary Oldman playing a character that you almost don't even recognize as him, because he's one of the best damn actors in existence. Fight me, anyone who tries to argue that. He is epic.
He's great.
And it gets me in a sci-fi fix that I just can't go back against. It has technology, it has guns, it has spaceships, space travel, some kind of crazy, weird space opera type thing happening as a whole. It's got levity and kind of fun in what was it, Chris Tucker or whatever, Ruby Rod, and stuff. But even that, and the thing that gets me the most out of the movie is, again, one of my things that I find carry me in so many flicks, which is the pacing. It never stops, and it ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and yet goes. And freaking love that movie. I'll admit, the finish on it, the actual climatic ending, is a little bit not there for me, with the whole idea of the Fifth Element. But the whole ride to that just blows me away. Even to
I'm gonna make a Captain Planet reference because I can't help it. But the Fifth Element is heart, Wayne. You know this.
I mean, yes, right? Yes, it absolutely is. And so, anyhow,
I'm thinking about the end where the doctors, that's like the president is there and all the generals are there and the doctor is there, and they put him in the chamber, the revival chamber or whatever. And he opens the hatch and shuts it again. He's like, there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a confession to make with this film. I watched it, or I watched some of it, and I really was enjoying it to the point that I turned it off.
Was there a specific scene or thing that took you out of it, or was it just you just were doing something else suddenly?
I don't know. I don't feel like it aged particularly well, this film.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I think I
okay.
first watched it in like 2018 or something, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not feeling this at all. And I watched it for like 10 more minutes, and I was like, I really just want to go do something else than watch this film. It's not that it was bad. I just felt like it aged poorly, and it wasn't of interest.
Interesting.
I mean, I think the nostalgia factor for you guys and having watched it when it came out means that you guys will see it through that lens, right? Whereas watching it through the modern day lens, it just didn't age well.
So it's interesting. I'm not sure what you mean by didn't age well, because for me, the visuals are solid, still look great. I don't ever see like the bad CG that sometimes pulls me out. The acting, I feel like, is solid throughout. Well, so I feel like that to me is part of the joy of the film, is that it, like I said, having Bruce Willis present like it did, it threw me back to Bruce Willis as Hudson Hawk, where instead of like the action star Bruce Willis or the original, gosh, I forget the romance series he was on that he first started on, but it kind of did an in-between where he was both entertaining as heck and somewhat funny in his character while also being action-y, which I really liked. It was such like a different look for Bruce Willis. And so for me, that, you're right, it is a less serious film by far. There's like very little serious in any of it. And thank you, Soda Pop. I was trying to think, or wait, no. Yeah, is it Soda Pop said? I had missed it for a moment, the whole Luke Perry thing, that rest in peace kind of thing, because he's in it, and I was like, when I saw it, it's like, wait, isn't that the guy from Beverly Hills 90210? Hey, you know? But like I said, and that's why I said controversial in some ways, because I put that on the list as probably my favorite sci-fi film, because it checks so many boxes for what I want out of sci-fi, about the way you experience weird, new, fanciful things that just made me blow my mind. Thank you, Soda Pop. Moonlighting, that he can't. That Bruce Willis started on Moonlighting back in the day.
Fantastic show. Yeah.
And so, all right, we're gonna take a break. It's gonna be a little bit long one, which is a scary thing to do since we're talking movies and can talk all day about this. But we have content added to us this break, so. Yes, while it is an opportunity for you to go refresh yourself, take a moment, and let your thimble size, if they exist, bladders relieve and such, but this is an opportunity also to listen to a contribution from our great friend Ionis, as he has taken the time to record some, I guess, highlights, news report, if you will, from I can only assume Moonguard, but so here's a little bit of brevity from our friend Ionis, talking about love and video games, if you will. So we'll be back right after this. It's going to be just over 4 minutes. And so feel free to stick around and enjoy a little bit of content from Ionis. We'll be right back.
Hello, my sexy gentle beings out there. This is me, Ionis. And I'm here to talk about relationships in video games and how to find that one true scripted love. Oh yeah, let us begin. First thing you gotta do when spotting a sexy piece of pixel is you want to alt-tab. Nasty. You want to go then to your favorite website. Oh no, not Pornhub, you silly naughty thing. From now on your favorite website is gamefax.com. Alles klar? When you're on gamefax.com you want to find the guide how to get that piece of cybernetic love down und jiggy. And when I say down und jiggy, I mean fuck. All the orifices will be. Neighbors will call the police. Yeah. Once you have the guide in one hand and the controller in the other, it is time to start. The romantic interest will have chores they want you to do before they even start warming up to your charms. They want you to bring them their favorite food? You do it. Help taking care of the sick grandma? Better get that riding hood ready. Yeah. And if your future lover wants you to slaughter half the town and sacrifice their souls to Satan, better respect DPS now. So, the rule number 1 is to do what your partner wants 100% of the time, even if it violates your personal code of ethics, the Hague Convention, and laws of thermodynamics. Yeah. The rule number 2 is to better follow the guide you just got, so you know what to say in every conversation. You don't want to give one bad answer and jeopardize the whole thing, do you? 9. Oh, but what if the worst happens and your partner hates you because you said your favorite color was yellow instead of green? 9. Don't panic. Ionis got you covered. Yeah. Before every conversation with your loved one, you want to quick save. If you say something wrong, you can always quick load and make it all better. Or why to have that tiresome argument again over you killing all the younglings in the Jedi Temple when you can make her forget it ever happened? This time you'll have the high ground. And by high ground I mean your she'll be dripping me the until the turn of the Jedi. Yeah. So remember, my lovelies, save often, obey your lover, and soon you'll have the same romantic partner thousands of other gamers had before you. Yeah. Well, this is all the time the parole officer said I can use the internet for, so see you next time, and remember, you are beautiful, you are breathtaking, and I love you. And by love you, I mean I want to
You're listening to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Oh my god. Oh Jesus.
You guys are all welcome.
Oh, my insides.
As always.
Oh, my face hurts from smiling too much.
Oh man.
I honestly was going to ask Ionis to do that every week, but I don't know how you top that.
Oh, he makes it I mean, he makes it a challenge for himself. That, you know, to up the ante every time he calls in or deals with the show. So thank you, Ionos, for letting us all know how to properly navigate digital love. So, and I apologize for anyone who missed that content break. You missed out because
you really did.
All right, getting back into things with the movie discussion today. Oh, okay. I think I led that last one off with The Fifth Element. So, Ken, would you like to add another to our list?
Yeah, so I've got two that I'm tempted to bring up right now. I think I'll go for the more interesting one first and the less interesting one later. My next one of my favorite movies is one that I've seen maybe 4 times, and it's interesting because it's a very artistic movie, and it's not one I would generally choose. But I adored when I first saw it, and every time I've seen it since. And that's Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Pan's Labyrinth is a 2006 movie that's got pretty high ratings across the board. It's got 8.2 on IMDb, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 98% on Metacritic. It's apparently a fantasy and war film. I don't know where the war comes in. I guess there's a few soldiers there, but
it's in the middle of the Spanish.
It's more when it's happening and where it's happening,
right?
I get that, but it's more that's very background compared to everything else that's kind of going on in the film.
Well, I think it's more the motivation. Yeah, the motivation about what's happening in the world at the time. But yeah, it doesn't really. It doesn't showcase the war in the film.
No, not at all. But yeah, absolutely fantastic film. Again, speaking about a great score, Pan's Labyrinth has a great score. The acting was superb, and the fantasy fey-like creatures that exist in it
Well,
are creepy as hell.
The costume and makeup on that one is so good.
Oh, dude, talking of the makeup, that's one of the things I really want to bring up was, do you remember that one scene where the soldier gets his nose panned in with a glass bottle?
Not
Is
off the top of my
terrifying.
head, but it's one of those ones I just remember.
My head,
Yeah, I just remember all of the visuals of it. It surprised me because I don't think I knew what was going in when I saw Pan's Labyrinth. And so when I did watch it, I was like, wow, like this thing's crazy. And I did enjoy it a lot. Interesting. Oh, man.
Guillermo del Toro has some sort of thing about putting eyes where they're not supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, that's
what are you talking about?
Cosplay. Anybody who can pull that off is great cosplay.
Yeah.
I've seen some of that stuff. It's amazing. No, that's a. You're right. It is artsy. I think it's surprisingly deep. And when you say artsy, it's funny because I wouldn't normally label it that way because I normally think of artsy personally as things I probably don't care to watch because you have to think too much about it. And I've come to realize I am not as deep thinking as some people like to portray themselves. I like to, I don't know, every once in a while relax a bit and let my mind enjoy the experience versus having to critically think about every moment. And Pan's Labyrinth, I don't think ever went so harsh as to be not for everybody, I guess, or something that requires you to really have to dive in to even enjoy it. I think it just stands as a great film as a whole. But it also ticks different boxes in some ways. Like, because it does have such a, I guess, dark kind of visual appeal. Maybe it's not as mainstream in some ways, because it's not directly like a horror film either, but it has imagery that is off-putting, right? It is a really good movie. Dang, I didn't think about that.
It is criminally underviewed by me. Like, I think I've only seen that movie once or twice.
I think I've only seen it once,
mm-hmm.
but it is really good.
Yeah.
Oh,
I knew that this was going to happen tonight. Like, when I was thinking about this episode, that Ken was going to come with all of these deep, sort of, artsy like film, like somebody who really gets film sort of takes, and I was going to drag my knuckles on the ground for 2 hours.
Sir, okay, let's get this straight. I am not a moviephile. Like, for me, watching a film it drains me to watch a film. Like, I can't really sit and relax. Like, after I've watched a film, I feel like I've done work. It's just not my thing watching films. So when we're talking about favorite films here, it's from the perspective of somebody who isn't really a film guy, but these are the ones I enjoyed the most anyway. Whereas when you're talking about films, you're like, this is my passion. This is stuff that I love. And so it's a completely different perspective.
It's still, because I'm looking at this list and I don't have anything that deep on it.
Don't feel bad, Todd. I'm probably in the same boat.
I just don't know, because...
Okay, so what would be the deepest one on your list that you'd like to share with us for your next one, Todd?
Oh, God. The deepest one on this list? This is sad and pathetic. The deepest one on this list is Falling Down.
Ooh, well, you say deep. Yeah, I don't know, man. That hits in a different direction, right? Because Falling Down is like...
No, this is the knuckle draggers list, Wayne. This is anti-art. This is anti-critique.
Okay, no, I got you with the anti-art part piece, but at the same time, I can see where Falling Down is an impactful movie. It is one of those that if I understand and remember the timeline of when it came out, it was shocking. And for a lot of people who panned it for the sheer violence of it, it spoke to a lot of people in the sense of like, oh, but this like pokes deep into my soul in places, right? That it was like...
I have described this movie before as my ultimate bad day movie. And there was a period of time of about 18 months in 2010, 2011, where I was having more bad days than good. And I watched this film a lot. I unfortunately can relate with the main character, which, if you don't know, Michael Douglas plays a 1980s era engineer who worked for a defense contractor, but the Cold War's over. And the world was changing and he couldn't keep up. So he lost his job and he can't find another job. And he is not He does not have the emotional range to be able to handle that kind of adversity, so he doesn't react well, and he ends up losing his wife because of this. And his wife has a child, and the wife gets the child, and so he's this guy who was an engineer is living with his mother and trying to find work, and in this crappy car and driving on the freeway in the middle of a traffic jam, and his air conditioner stops working, and it's 90 degrees outside Fahrenheit, and then the car dies. And you can see that point where he has had enough. Right?
That break point, that snap, yep.
And he just, the rest of the movie is, I am going home. And I do not care what gets in my way. And I love that about this. Like, he doesn't walk down the sidewalk. He doesn't like try to fit into the rules. He walks, at least for the first little while, a straight line.
It's like literally,
yep,
home.
Because doesn't he like initially just like walk over cars and stuff, like starting or something like that? I'm trying. It's been so long since I've seen it.
No, so he just gets out of the car and starts walking. He gets to the edge of the freeway. There's a hole in the fence of in the edge of the freeway where he can walk down the hill, which is where he makes it to the Korean grocery store, right? And that's a grocery store that's supposed to have a Korean guy. That's like the stereotypical Korean grocer where there's no price tags on everything because they give a local discount to everybody, and anybody who's not from around the neighborhood gets screwed, quote unquote. Like, it's kind of it's a bad stereotype, but that's exactly what they were going for. And so he walks in to try and buy a soda, like just a can of Coke, and the guy who owns the store starts screwing with him. So this guy who's like, I'm done, I'm going home, he screws back. Then he's got a Coke, and he grabs the bat from the Korean grocery store, and he's walked a hole in his shoes. So he had the newspaper inside his briefcase, and
he's
keeps patting his shoes, right? He's patting the shoes with a newspaper, and these two gangsters come up and try to rob him, but he's got a baseball bat, so he hits one of them with a baseball bat and picks up a butterfly knife.
Yeah, it just progresses as it goes.
And escalates and escalates. And Michael Douglas is great, and Robert Duvall is great. And, the other side of this is Robert Duvall's part, where Robert Duvall's about to retire, and his wife has Alzheimer's, is developing dementia or Alzheimer's disease, and she's, they lost their child, and he's dealing with the fact that his life is totally about to change. And these two get intertwined with each other on Robert Duvall's last day of work. And I got
you. It just all kind of connects.
Love this movie. I just love it.
But don't
I saw this years ago, by the way, years and years ago as well. Actually, Kitten showed me it, and I remember thoroughly enjoying it and being very surprised by it. I wasn't expecting it to be such a impactful movie.
The scene at the end where Michael Douglas is like, I'm the bad guy. Like, yeah. What have you been doing all day?
Well,
like, how did that happen?
This is where, Todd, don't undersell this as like deep movie kind of discussion, because it is deep about a whole conversation of what the influences on a person's psyche can be, and even that last statement, right? Because that comment back to the villain never sees himself as the villain, right? Yeah. The villain is the hero in their own story. Yep. And so, I mean, it is actually, I think, has layers beyond what people give it credit for, just because of, again, the shock and violence of the movie. The more you talk about it, the more it's like, there's brilliance
we've had this conversation before, and then we can move on. But I was really uncomfortable with Joker because I was sold Joker as like falling down for a new generation. And I went, oh great, I'm gonna love this, right? But it's so different because it's very clear that the guy who becomes the Joker is mentally ill from the jump. And there's this really uncomfortable, like you really think you're going to get this redemption arc out of him, and then you realize, nope, that's just the mentally ill talking. And it's just like I went from, oh, this is going to be my new Bad Day film. Not that I have that many bad days anymore, but this is going to become my new Bad Day film. And it's like, nope, I am super uncomfortable by this film. And
I was going to say,
and in that way, right, it was a really effective at what it did, but I could watch Falling Down tomorrow and be perfectly
there's different things, right? And I talk about that.
I would struggle to watch Joker tomorrow.
Which, there's a thing, right? Because there are a lot of movies that are classics in the world, right? Everyone can argue these are amazing movies. And it doesn't mean I'll ever want to watch them again. I talk about that in some ways, like I mentioned in the chat earlier, Grave of the Fireflies. Great anime. Holy cow. But brutal emotionally. Like, you watch and at the end, you do not feel good. You're like, right? And there are a lot of movies like that. It's like Schindler's List, right? Freaking amazing movie. Not one of my favorites. Amazing. Like, I have mass respect for the movie. Enjoyed it, and I was like, cool, I'm glad I saw that. Don't know if I'll ever watch it again, because I just feel bad coming off of that movie, right?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I went to a matinee of Saving Private Ryan not long after it originally came out. And I lived in a small, I was still living in a small town in Wisconsin at that point, and it's a pretty old town, or it was at that time, and there were some old people in the crowd with us, and they're doing D-Day, and you can hear people that are sobbing.
Oh man, yeah, no. Ooh, that movie is impactful as heck. It's actually one I really love. Watched it again recently. It was like, damn.
That opening 20 minutes, it's clear that these people either knew somebody who had been involved, or like the guy himself was on the beach, because it was just like it was the kind of emotion that's just so raw.
Yes.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that also speaks to some brilliant movies, right? There's ones that are artistically brilliant, ones that are emotionally brilliant, ones that are historically brilliant. One for me that's kind of on that list, and this is, I don't know if I qualify this as deep or not, but it's the one I'm going to go for this actor, which I feel like his whole genre or his whole list kind of makes it, is Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Because Forrest Gump just makes me smile in so many ways, and it's like one of my favorite rides through history. And the character that Tom Hanks portrays in Gump is so pure in its own way, and just the way they're able to basically showcase and navigate history through the eyes of a unknown participant kind of thing through it all blows me away. It hits both on like a nostalgia thing. It has soundtrack because it's one that does a little different from a lot of the ones we've mentioned where they have it like orchestral built for the movie soundtracks. This is more, we collected some of the most iconic songs from the times and put them in there. And it blows my mind how diverse the story that's told in Forrest Gump is. From deep war and like serious effects of war and veterans and things like that, to the 60s in general, like 70s time frame, like hippies and things going through that, to like the politics side, to just the history of race, to like, it just hits so many places. And I bring it up partially because I needed at least one, right? Tom Hanks film, because I think he's a brilliant actor. And I think he has the benefit, unlike unlike Nick Cage, that where Tom Hanks is a brilliant actor who also gets to participate in brilliant films, where Nick Cage is a mediocre actor that gets thrown into awesome films. And so with that, it's like, because I saw earlier, it was, I don't know, I think it might have been Soda that mentioned one of his top was A League of Their Own, right? Great Tom Hanks film, great period piece, right? He does such good jobs. Down to like when I watched, Castaway or whatever it was with, what Tom Hanks did there, all the way back to me for like Big, right? That Tom Hanks is just a great actor. And so for me, Forrest Gump was such a kind of culmination of his acting and the story being told that I can watch it anytime. The double cassette soundtrack for it, awesome. And again, such a diverse soundtrack that's not something that was created for the movie. As well as having one of the worst female leads in a movie ever. Like someone that's like, you are a horrible person, Jenny. You are terrible.
Yeah. Yep.
How you were not deserving of this man throughout any of this movie.
Yeah.
You never deserved him.
Yeah.
But
and
yeah,
he loves her
it's like,
he loves her anyway. Yep.
It's just his, like I said, and I understand, Mika, Castaway is a slow movie, but it's, like I said, I'm talking about like Tom Hanks' acting has always been something I appreciated.
Yep.
And like, yeah, Sir Spencer saying Apollo 13, I can go down his list, and it's kind of the same way. It's like, lots of his movies raise high for me.
Also, Bill Paxton in that film.
Right?
Yep.
There are some brilliant actors out there in the world, damn it. But the challenge is I try to bring up one that's like, but damn it, that's not deep. It has a lot of pieces, but I think I look at my list and I don't know if that's deep. If any of mine fit into that category either. We're giving you praise, Ken. Don't feel like we're poking. We feel like you have a cerebral access to movies in a way different than us. Okay.
Don't worry.
But with that in mind, Ken, do you have one that's a little more levity or something that our knuckle dragging might be able to keep up with?
Yes, this is something that's complete opposite from artsy and is yeah. I really, again, I'm not going to name a specific film because it's ridiculous to do so, and if I have to, I'll do the most recent one. The Avengers series in general. Okay. It is, whether you like it or not, it has revolutionized cinema. It's brought in more money into the industry in the past few years than any other film in the past couple of decades. Yeah. It broke records in many different ways. Soundtrack was good. And it just changed the quality of what we expect. Like the amount of money that they put into it, the graphical quality, the sound quality, the quality of the actors that are involved, all just top notch, all fantastic. I mean, there are a few films in there that are bad. Like I'd say the Thor films weren't great. I didn't really enjoy them because they're more romance for some reason.
Take your mind back. Ragnarok is a brilliant piece of art and is top in almost all of the actual Marvel universe.
Except Wayne, they blew the opportunity to use.
They gave you the closest thing to Planet Hulk and World War Hulk you were ever going to get in a film.
That's correct.
They give you a nod without going fully into it. They did give you two.
You're right, but I wanted that because that film would be awesome.
We all do, right? But it wouldn't have fit the cinematic universe fully. You'd have to do a whole side.
Well,
so it's interesting you bring that up, Ken, because it's hard, right? Because I do really enjoy what Marvel and the MCU has done and become. And I struggle because there are certain films that I elevate a little higher for other reasons and such. What I will give, because none of them would reach a top for me, and I actually looked on my shelf, and like one of the things I passed over looking at my shelf of movies before the show, of like things I own, right, is kind of to help remind myself, was Black Panther. Because Black Panther hit in ways that I was like, ooh, thank you, MCU, for providing this look at things, right? But what Marvel gave me is the best visualization of superheroes that I had ever seen. That for me was taking the pages of comic books, which are outrageous in how fantastic they are, and putting it into what I can see as a visual space. It's like what, to me, Harry Potter did with the books to bring visualization of magic to visual space. What Lord of the Rings did with fantasy to visual space. And Marvel, the MCU, was able to do that because we've had superhero movies in the past of various quality. You know, I mean, the 80s Captain America / Spider-Man movies that have existed.
Green Lantern.
DC's constant challenge with trying to bring things to the full screen other than animated.
I swear to you, Ryan Reynolds' entire career is now apologizing for that film.
Which I'm okay with, because Deadpool, thank you. And I still haven't seen whatever his newer one, I don't know if it's out yet, the one with him in the video game as the NPC that figures it out. Because that looks fun to me. But, yes. But, yeah, no, so it's funny because, I don't know if any single MCU movie brings up to, like, that's a favorite, but I've enjoyed the ride a lot. And I've watched all the movies, and as a whole, boom.
Infinity War being The Empire Strikes Back for a new generation. No, I remember walking out of Infinity War and thinking to myself, that is how you do it. That is how you do it.
They did.
I will
they did an
admit,
extraordinarily good job.
you're right,
Yeah,
because I
they
watched
really
through
did.
so much of that, like, woo, and it got in theater. MCU movies, and that one in particular, had moments of audience participation that was unprepared, right? The yeah kind of thing from the audience.
That's so American, by the way. I'd never once like. I remember when I was like 13 years old. Me and my buddies went to go see Snakes on a Plane at the theater because we thought just for a joke more than anything. It was, go watch a bad movie, right? And there was like two random other people in the cinema. And we made a point of as soon as the film started and it popped up saying Snakes on a Plane, we all stood up and gave it a round of applause just for this. Like the film only just started, it was so stupid, but we thought it was very funny. That's the only time I've ever like done anything at a cinema like that, and the only time I've ever seen anything like that, and that was us taking the piss,
Well, so
so we have to talk about the dark humor of the Norwegians for just a second.
You are going to educate us, please.
I went and saw the first Taken in the theater in Norway with the Mistress of Giggles.
Okay.
And it's English dialogue with Norwegian subtitles.
Okay.
So occasionally you'll get laughter at inappropriate moments because of language differences, and so the translation, because it's obviously English to Norwegian and vice versa, it's not one-to-one.
Sure.
Sometimes they use the wrong words, or they use words in what is not a correct syntax for Norway or for Norwegian.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of lost in translation.
Yeah. You'll get some lost in translation, like snickering at the wrong time. This was not that. They were in Paris in the scene where Liam Neeson is torturing the guy.
Okay.
And he's talking about how great it is to be able to work in Western Europe where the power grid is stable.
Oh.
Brought the house down.
Interesting. I imagine it's one of those, because if you're actually aware of the situation, hearing something basically of absurdity that everyone else understands.
I guess. Like, there's a dude with metal spikes in his legs that's getting hooked up to a light switch that's directly connected to the power grid for the country. It's like, oh man, I love working in Western Europe. Most of the time I work in places where there's not stable power, and when I'm trying to get information out of somebody, like sometimes I have to wait hours.
Well, okay, yeah, it's the inside joke effect, right? It's when someone makes them. It's it's the Dumb and Dumber reference when they turn around and said, the wrong direction in the Rocky Mountain. And they're like, John Denver or whatever's full of crap. And when they show the sign and it shows like whatever distance to a place, and you look like that is not at all it, right? And things like that. That whenever you actually know a thing, you see it, you're like, nope, that's entertaining.
I
inside
laughed
joke.
Mightily. Yeah,
That's great.
I laughed mightily at the people laughing at the guy getting tortured because the power grid was stable.
Gotcha. All right.
That's good.
No, so on to you, Todd, for another one onto the list.
How about some cheese? How about some really, really good cheese?
Okay.
Demolition Man.
Oh, man, I love Demolition Man. Crud,
Yep.
and they're making a second one.
The one you
with
hadn't
everybody
thought of,
coming. What's that?
Is that one you hadn't thought of?
It did not come to mind again, but it's one of those movies that I feel like is so underappreciated in the genre. It's funny, right? Because it's another Bruce Willis, right? I think.
No, that's Sylvester Stallone. And
Oh, it's
Wesley
Stallone.
Snipes.
Sorry, it's Stallone. I was thinking another. Sorry, Stallone and Wesley Snipes and
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. Thank you. Darn it, I messed up those Stallone. But no, that movie's epic. There's
so many good lines in that film.
Oh man, that's a good one.
Where Wesley Snipes is trying to operate the computer and he's typing all the buttons and like he's doing all this stuff that he's not supposed to be able to do, and they finally get to the point where he's trying to find where the guns are.
Mm-hmm.
And the computer is defining what a gun is for him. And he sits back and goes, "Come on, Hal, where are the goddamn guns?"
Yep.
He gets beeped, but the computer doesn't know who he is because they didn't track. He doesn't have a tracker in him, like everybody else in society does. It's just
there is so much brilliance in that movie, and one of my favorite moments of what's the comedian in it that plays in the
Rob Schneider.
No, in the Underground. Not Rob Schneider, not the main one. The one that has the biscuit. Yeah,
I can see it
because he was famous at the time it was made. Right, he was doing the MTV quotes about smoking and all this and that, and the whole soundtrack. And he has the song "I'm an A-hole." Dennis Leary. Thank you. One of the cameo kind of roles of Dennis Leary that I still am like, yes, because they gave him that moment of where he got to rant, and it was Dennis Leary, right? And then it goes back.
So good. Yep.
Oh,
so good.
You guys are killing me in the comments again because there are so many good movies out there. Yes, Predator is classic. Running Man is classic. I love them both, but they don't make the top of my list. Blade, that starts to struggle me too because Blade's a Marvel movie and it's awesome.
Blade is so much fun to watch and is a really bad film.
Well, it's not though. It's actually
really
made so well for the time.
Recently?
Yes, and it still holds up. Blade 1 is amazing. Blade 2 is okay. Blade 3 gets silly. But tried to come back to be horror again because it didn't hide that it was trying to still be a gritty kind of horror film with a character like Blade that is a comic book hero.
Is there a better open to your vampire film than Bloodbath?
Oh, I don't know if I've
seen the Bloodbath scene at the beginning of Blade.
Oh, wait. Oh, gotcha. Oh, yeah, dude.
That song, the song that they are playing got played in clubs for years.
Hey, the only one that I would put on par with, perhaps, is From Dusk Till Dawn, because you go from the introduction of an amazing scene from Selma Hayek to, vampires.
Yes. See, but that starts off like it's going to be a bank robbery.
Yes, it's a heist movie initially, right? And you're like, oh, snap.
Yes.
And then it isn't.
And then it's like, surprise!
Okay, you're right. Not opening scene,
agree.
But reveal scene.
I agree.
Man, this is tough because maybe I am nostalgizing it a bit, but I love Blade. And I'll be curious to see what the next Blade movie looks like. Be. But I actually, because I've seen it recently and I still enjoy it.
I'm sorry, you said that they were making another Demolition Man?
They're talking about making a sequel with all the original actors.
Oh, yes, please. Can I have that?
They have talked about it. Damn it, Legend, why you do this to me?
God.
Underworld's also really good. Hey, I've seen several continuations that are actually really good.
Underworld's also another bad film that's really fun to watch.
But Underworld provided some visuals and takes on the way that you could present vampires that had not been done before, and has an iconic scene again. Because is that one Kate Beckinsale, or whoever was the actress? I forget.
Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, okay. The initial drop off the tower onto the ground and standing up like it wasn't even a half a thought. That scene alone provided such a showcase of what that world's mechanics and characters were that just that little scene was epic. Like that had not been done in a monster movie in that way before because they did it so effortlessly. And moment where you saw it, you accepted it, and you were like, oh snap.
Kate Beckinsale as Celine is about half a step down from Sigourney Weaver as Ripley in the badass alpha lady scale.
Takes no crap, needs nothing else, can do most everything on own. Like,
And by the way, it was special mention because we've talked about Blade, and Blade 3 had Jessica Biel in it, and we talked about Underworld with Kate Beckinsale. A special shout out to New School Total Recall, which had both, and Kate Beckinsale and Jessica Biel fight, and I have dreams that start that way.
Jesus.
Nice. All right. Oh gosh, I'm tempted to flip the script here for another one of mine, which I've got like two more on my list of the ones I'm along the same lines, because this will go quick because very few people have probably seen it. Way of the Gun. Ooh. It's a movie that is such like an off-kilter, almost like more people missed it than saw it, essentially. And it has so many great actors in it that most people, when you see it on screen, you're like, oh, snap, that person. Oh, snap, this person. And it's a movie that came out, it gets little praise. In fact, was it on IMDb, it's like a 6.7 out of 10. But for me, it's one that I've shared with more people than probably anyone. Like, I've given people copies of this movie more and more. And the reason I like it is that it is one of the best, for me, scenes of smart character interaction that I've seen in almost any kind of bad guy, heist, or such type film. It's smart. The way there's a scene in it, so the whole premise, right, is that they basically, these two down out of luck, kind of terrible guys anyways, that do every kind of side thing they can to make money and hustle, and they have accepted in their life they're never going to be good people. So they don't care who they screw out of kind of what they need to kind of survive and go on. Not trying to be rich, but also not trying to play the everyman's game. They get a line on that some rich dude attached to some gal who's pregnant, and they feel like if they can get hold of her, they can ransom her off to him. That's their whole deal. Mm. Like, we can get money from this. And there's scenes in it where what I love is the bodyguards and people around her trying to protect, because, of course, the rich guy's not a good guy. Why else would you have some gal pregnant for you through shady means? And the main guys are not dumb guys, and they've done some shady stuff in the past that they don't necessarily explain, but you see in the way they talk to each other and interact and reference things, right? But there's a scene where they do one of the best chase scenes I've ever seen, because it's a slow chase scene. And it's them with the girl in the car going, and the bodyguards chasing them down with trying to get them back, right? Guns in play, stuff like this. And the way they do things like covering each other when they move. Moving, boom, the next guy comes out and just starts laying cover fire down. Goes across. Got you. Next guy comes across. And it's just so orchestrated and thoughtful. And then when they do the chase, they do the chase in a way that initially is kind of fast, but they're trying not to get attention of the regular people. And they end up going into an alley, and what they do this one moment where they slow this, like, it's like a Blazer or Bronco they're driving, down with the car behind chasing. And as they do, they slow it down so much the guys get behind them and also slow down. They open the doors and kind of put the car into neutral. And the guys behind slow their car down and start, like, pushing it with their feet as they're kind of watching, like, we're all at the same pace. And then what they do is as the truck in that front keeps rolling, they jump out and just start blasting, right? The guys in the back, and they jump out of their car and then start coming after them. And they do it in such a way that what they're able to do is they keep walking back while their car's idling or just rolling. And the other guys get further away from their car. And then all of a sudden they disengage, jump back in the car, and take off. So that the other guys have to run back to their car to get into it to continue. Like, they set that whole scene up to say, we're going to give us distance through this action. And it just has a lot of things like that. And again, some of the best gunplay I've seen. It's kind of a harsh movie, but in a way you kind of like the main guys in it, the protagonist, even though they're not good guys. And again, it has people. Yeah, they're anti-heroes. It has Ryan Felipe, Benicio del Toro, Juliette Lewis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, you start seeing the people in it, you're like, wait, what? Yeah. It's got some of the Taye Diggs is in it.
Oh my goodness.
James Caan is in it.
Wow.
James Caan. Yeah, it's got, like, actual, you're like, wait, what? As people,
I need to see this film.
And it's got one of the best intros where it's got Sarah Silverman in it, essentially being herself. And one of the most harsh direct interactions, again, smart takes on things I've ever seen. So I'm throwing that out there as kind of a side anti-whatever that's not necessarily deep, but man, I love that movie. And again, one I bet nobody's really seen. Ken, to you.
Oh, so I had a long thinking with this next one, and because I'm torn between a bunch. Like, I'm basing which films I list here. I've got a bunch more, but which ones I list in the show is based on time, right? So I have to think very carefully which ones I could fit in.
Right. Yep.
I think the next one I have to fit in is The Matrix.
So, not bad to bring up. It's been mentioned several times in our chat. For you, Ken, what exemplars The Matrix into your list?
Well, I first watched The Matrix when I was like 9, 10? Like, I was young, right? And I remember that having such an impact on me and thinking it was so freaking cool. All the slow-mo, all the, jumping down from the building, but knowing you'll be okay and therefore you will be. All that like willpower into reality stuff. I love that, man. I love this. And the cool badass fight scenes. Like when Neo's running around the corners and laying down fire. I love that trivia, the movie trivia about that film, about how there's that one scene that was like the most expensive scene in the entire film, where Neo is sitting there with a couple of Uzis and he's just breaking into that big high security building, right? And he has one shot because it's so expensive to. They basically had all these pillars that were prepped with like
they blow up
explosives.
Everything.
Yeah, and they had like all these guns ready and everything. So they do the big scene. All the explosives go off. Neo's sitting there, and his job, all he needs to do is get up and run around the pillar, and he falls over. There's a clip on YouTube of it, but they couldn't do anything about it. They were like, we can't afford to do it again, so they kept the scene, but they just cut it where he gets up, and they refilmed that part and spliced it on. So if you look very, you actually see when Neo like would have fallen. It's just so funny. I love that. That whole scene. I must have watched that film like 10 times during my like preteen years.
I have seen The Matrix a lot, and another one that presented a world in a way that I was like, this is unique and cool. And being a geek, the idea of The Matrix itself, right, and what it could be, and it definitely spawned surprisingly a ton of people who asked the question, right? Is are we in a Matrix, right? Like the idea of it enough that it became kind of its own pop culture thing.
It was so big that my philosophy 101 course in the textbook, they mentioned like like Descartes' what is real type arguments, and they basically they made a reference directly to the red pill, blue pill stuff.
Gotcha. Now, and I love Matrix. It's a challenge because admittedly the visual effects on that one for me don't hang as well. I think the initial scene with, and I forget the actress's name, when she jumps through the window and kind of spins. Now looks so. The color difference is so bad at that moment that I'm like, ooh. And is of course any of the digital effects a little later, like the fight stuff with Mr. Smith later or whatever, start to get Agent Smith start to get a little weird. But I do love this movie, and it's one of those ones I wonder if the series doesn't sour me more than the movie itself.
Yeah. The rest of the films were pretty bad
because it kind of just lost some of the joy that I got from the original.
Well,
right?
They're still filming Matrix 4 right now.
I am hopeful that when I don't know if it was in the chat there or elsewhere, it was like remakes and are we hopeful for or not? That's one I'm a little more leery of than others. But right now, at the same time, anything that you put Keanu in is gold, right? Right now, so who knows?
He's licensed to print money, yeah.
Right, he's pretty much, that's why they've added him to roles and stuff where it's like, I'm sorry, you should not have you should not. Keanu is Constantine. That's hot trash. I love Keanu, but the actor from the series that you killed was perfect for Constantine, and it pisses me off that you're trying to do the movie version on it. My own thing out there. Love Keanu, but hey. No, it is a great movie though, and it sparks like such a, for many reasons, a great movie. And like Babs is challenging you because he's saying go rewatch Blade. Matrix has nothing cinematically unique to it. I think what what Matrix had was a lot of new technology in it.
Yeah, but it's the philosophical idea behind it. This is one of the most fascinating things. And Blade doesn't have that.
Vastly more interesting story in The Matrix than in Blade.
Yeah.
But
also, I remember when I was, this wasn't so long ago, I was undergrad years, so about 19 or so. I had a buddy who was from China, and me and Graham were sitting talking about like, pop culture stuff with him, and his English was really, really poor, right? So we had to be like very slow talking to him. And we mentioned The Matrix. He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "You don't know what The Matrix is?" Holy crap! Like it was 10 years old. The film was 10 years old at that point, right? It's like it's kind of ancient news, And I'm like, how do you not know what The Matrix is? So we're like, all right, we gotta do it. So we made fajitas. We went and got some trash junk food, and we sat and watched The Matrix. And he was like, "That was my favorite film ever." That's what he said at the end of it. He was so amazed by it.
And the problem is, like, there's so many, and that experience reminds me, because there's been a lot of movies that when I find out people haven't watched them, I have that reaction of, "Are you kidding me?" and want to push them back and say, "Well, let's now watch this instantly right now."
Yeah, right. It's the only sensible thing we can do now in this situation.
All right, Todd, we're getting close to time, but what's another one from you?
Well, I've been delaying these two for long enough. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. They're the two good original cast feature films. Ricardo Montalban will be one of the best bad guys in all of cinema for the rest of time.
His Khan is phenomenal.
And yeah, as his Khan is amazing. And Star Trek VI is good because it's sort of dealing with the story of Star Trek VI is dealing with a changing world. They dealt with it in the way, in what I think is an interesting way, given the restrictions of being in Gene Roddenberry's universe.
Okay.
Gene Roddenberry being a very famous humanist. And so anything that has the Star Trek sort of brand on top of it, that's got the Roddenberry name assigned to it, will always have a humanist bent to it, which is why the Next Generation show is the way it is. Yes. But they're dealing, they deal with, the extremes that people will go to resist change, and that's why I like that. I like Six. As much as I do, I don't need to really talk about the Wrath of Khan that much. It's great, and it's combat heavy, which is one of the things that I always thought the Star Trek films and the Roddenberry verse, all of Roddenberry's stuff, sort of sold short, because I think it could be really awesome if you invested the time into it.
Okay.
And I don't really need to say much more than that about it.
Well, no, I'm glad that you brought some of them in there, right? Because it's another one. I like the overall full series of Star Trek. Like, I generally like Star Trek to watch the movies and such. They're definitely the better and definitely the worst of them, but I generally enjoy them all. And so it's interesting that it's hard for me to be like, which one, like that they would hit my list as a whole, but they're really good and enjoy that they exist so much.
So some people are going to consider this a nitpick, but in no way would you ever consider doing time travel in a 20-year-old Klingon bird of prey. Like, they're just not.
We're gonna put how much force behind it and go around.
I can't tell you how much I dislike Star Trek 4. It makes me rage.
Whereas
But
I actually kind of enjoy it.
I don't really need to talk about it any more than that. I love Star Trek 2, and I'll watch Star Trek 6. Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to add as much as we'd like to the list. We could just spend all day, week talking about great films.
Yeah, we could.
The last one I want to bring up that is total, like, side from what I've mentioned in the past. This is my last one. Is the last one on my list. But is a movie that is just joy for me. And I can watch whenever. It just makes me happy. And I've watched it many times. I don't know how many times. Is The Iron Giant. The animated film, The Iron Giant.
That's a good one.
It just hits me on so many little levels. Like, there are other animated films I absolutely adore, like Secret of Nim and other ones I just love. But something about The Iron Giant and the way the story of the giant comes off, and I guess the interplay between the young boy and the giant and his, I don't know. Everything about it just hits me as kind of a combination of a little bit of sci-fi, but in an era movie, being it old school, and the fact that they tie it right up with Sputnik and the overbearing government in the time frame of, like, the whole, what are the Russians doing up there? I mean, they're spying us, we don't even know. The kind of, like, just the way it plays on that time frame and such. And I guess a big part is just the way the development of the Iron Giant itself goes to the movie brings me joy. And so it's a film that I've watched many times, and I can just sit back, kick on, and be like, I'm just going to be happy here for the next however long this is going on. And I don't think it's a cinematic star, but it has lots of little points in the animation and the wordplay and the pacing that just make me happy. And so,
I think it's a core part of so many people's childhood as well. I mean, I remember watching that when I was a kid and enjoying it.
you said as a kid, man, that thing came out when I was an adult.
Nice.
Shoot.
Because we're old, Wayne. Because
We
old.
are. But it also speaks to, like, even not being a child watching it, there is joy there. And I will give you guys one shots if there's anything else iconic on your list that you need to get out there as a last one to not get into huge, but it's hard.
Yeah, if we've got 5 minutes, so that's what basically 2 minutes each plus all the time for the end. Yeah, I'll go with The Shining. The Shining, because not only did I love the book is a completely separate entity to the film, and I see why Stephen King didn't like the film because it doesn't portray what the book does. However, the film itself is a beautiful thing that is different and separate from the book, and both can be enjoyed so long as you consider them separate entities, not the same universe. I think it was a beautiful piece. I think the setting was amazing, the atmosphere was amazing. True horror film that gives you the heebie-jeebies and makes you think about it late at night, especially when I first watched it back then. I remember being genuinely scared watching that film. And it just, like I said, the setting, the acting, oh my God, the acting was amazing, right?
Yep.
You watch that, here's Johnny, right? It's something that's so quotable to this day. That's special. That's something very special. So that's for me.
Okay.
Shining.
Todd, another one to kind of get off the chest is like has to at least be mentioned.
So I have to mention Heat.
Yeah. So I started talking about gunplay, and that one came to mind as soon as I did, because I was like, holy cow, that movie, the whole one long scene or whatever, that's just like more bullets fired in a piece of time frame than I think outside of maybe RoboCop or something.
It's got the star power. It's got Pacino and De Niro in it as good guy and bad guy respectively. Pacino is the good guy, but he's no hero. And so I learned something new about that film, and that they don't portray in the film at all. But supposedly Pacino's character is supposed to be coked out of his mind the entire time.
Interesting.
Like, he's supposed to have a pretty significant drug habit while he's doing all this. Yep. And I'm not suggesting that it changes the film necessarily for me, but yeah, that's just the story that they're telling, and the how it feels very real to me. And like professionals on the bad guy side against professionals on the good guy side, in this sort of good versus evil type of thing. And you mentioned gunplay, and I have to do this. I'm going to cheat because I'm going last. Hard Boiled and The Replacement Killers. The Hard Boiled is Chow Yun-fat in a John Woo film.
Yep.
With an infinite ammo code.
It's fun. That is a heck of a fun movie.
The Replacement Killers is Chow Yun-fat and Mira Sorvino in an Americanized version of what that would look like. Of what a John Woo film would look like. An Americanized version of a John Woo film. Of what that would look like. If you have to pick one of the two, I would pick Hard Boiled, because Hard Boiled is just insane. Like I said, infinite ammo code. At one point, dude's got a semi-auto. Chow Yun-fat has a semi-auto in one hand and a revolver in another, and he doesn't stop firing that revolver for like 10 minutes.
Yes.
So, and he doesn't stop the reload. Like, it's just that self-replacing ammunition.
It makes a meme or joke about old action movies where it's just you just pull the trigger and it keeps shooting.
Infinite ammo.
Appreciate the cheat. I had forgot most of those kind of genres and other movies, and this is the challenge of a conversation like this: is there are too many movies out there, and there are too many damn good movies out there. Oh no, woe is me. And I loved the list you guys participated in the chat and helping us out, seeing something, reminding me of quite a few in there.
Yep.
I would love,
chat.
Feel free to email us in and mention like a little more format. If you can take the time, you got like at least a week here. You could take the time to format what might be your top 10, but more so, I'd love to hear your top 1 or 2 and kind of a detailed discussion of why. What is it about that film? Because, like, for me, it can be a combination of the story being told, the actors, a character in the story, the as Ken brought up, like the soundtrack of it, the cinematics, all those kinds. As Todd kind of mentioned, the feel or what you use that movie for and how it fits into your life and experience. All of these are valid reasons for any media we like. And it just seems like movies provide such a universal, if you will, kind of appeal that so many people watch movies. More people likely watch films in some form than read books in many cases these days. And so it's something I think kind of ties all of us together, even though we all have our different tastes. And so I would love for you guys to share with us so we can understand better some of the things that you love, whether anything that made our list is something you truly disagree with, or you're like, how dare you even bring that drivel up? Or the easily, more likely, the absolute gems of the universe that somehow we missed based on our experience, that either we need to better reevaluate our decisions in life or perhaps take a time to go witness something that we might have missed. So feel free to email us in, vtwshowx@gmail.com, and let us know some of your thoughts about some of the best movies out there for you.
Go to YouTube, everybody, and put in Count Von Count Dirty in the search criteria.
Some of the best use of bleeps ever on the internet.
Yep. You'll be glad that you did. Ken, take us home.
You have been watching, listening, and enjoying Show X live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or possibly recorded on YouTube. And thank you very much for listening in and watching us today. We really much appreciate you guys all listening. And we'll keep it brief because it's shown that our viewership drips off the further into the spiel we go. So I'm going to keep it as short as possible from now on. You can find all of our links on Linktree, which is linktr.ee/showx. Everything's in there. Please go click there. You can donate, see our social media, and all that stuff, and we appreciate all that. Thank you very much for listening in to us today.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. We're out of here. And a big salute to all of you for joining in. We will catch you again next week. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. See you next zombie. Good night.